The first challenge, the alien fleet descended onto the surface of the unknown planet. Their ships landed with a soft thud, dust rising in the air, as if the planet was already rejecting their presence. The aliens had come to test humanity's survival skills, confident that they, with their advanced technology, would easily defeat any species that dared challenge them. They were wrong. Humanity's elite survival team had been chosen for the challenge. These were not ordinary humans. They were experts in living off the land, in the harshest of environments. They had lived through Earth's worst storms, fought off predators bigger than them, and survived disasters that would have wiped out entire civilizations. But the aliens didn't know that yet. They believed they had the upper hand. The first thing the aliens noticed as they stepped out of their ships was the silence. There were no sounds of animals, no wind rustling through the trees. The planet seemed barren, hostile. And yet, as they looked around, they saw the humans already preparing. They were not afraid. They were ready. The human leader, a tall man with a calm demeanor, turned to his team. They were focused, their eyes scanning the surroundings, looking for anything that might threaten their survival. The humans had no high-tech gadgets, no weapons that could blow up entire cities. But they had something far more important: experience. "We'll need to make shelter first," the leader said quietly, his voice steady. "The storm's coming. We don't want to be caught outside." The humans moved quickly, gathering what they could: rocks, branches, and the dry plants that were scattered across the barren land. They worked together like a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role. Within minutes, they had a small fire burning, using nothing but sticks and stones. It wasn't impressive, but it would keep them warm. Meanwhile, the aliens were still standing around, unsure of what to do. They had brought with them advanced fire-starting tools, devices that could light a fire with a touch of a button. But none of them worked. The aliens tried again and again, their frustration growing. Each time they pushed the button, the device sparked, but no flame came. One of the alien soldiers, tall and armored in sleek, reflective metal, looked at the human leader with a sneer. "You're telling me you start fires with sticks?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "We have technology capable of lighting fires in seconds. How do you expect to survive with that?" The human leader didn't respond at first. Instead, he glanced at the fire burning steadily in front of them. Then, with a calm smile, he spoke. "It's not about how we make fire. It's about knowing how to use it." The alien soldier scoffed, shaking his head. "You're nothing but primitive creatures. You can't survive here. This planet is meant to test your limits, and we are the ones who will teach you that." The humans ignored him. They were used to being underestimated. They knew that survival wasn't about the tools you had. It was about how you used what you were given. While the aliens were busy with their malfunctioning gadgets, the humans were already building a shelter, weaving branches together, and preparing for the storm that would soon hit. The first raindrops began to fall, soft at first, then harder as the alien team finally admitted that their technology wasn't working. They retreated to their ships, hoping to find shelter inside. But the humans who had no such luxury kept working. Their hands moved swiftly, their eyes never leaving the task at hand. They weren't bothered by the rain. They had been through worse. As the storm grew stronger, the alien leader watched in disbelief. The humans were building their shelter without hesitation, using only the resources around them. They weren't relying on anything advanced. They were relying on themselves. The alien leader thought about his own race and their incredible technology. They had weapons capable of wiping out entire planets, tools that could bend the laws of nature to their will. And yet, here they were, unable to do something as simple as start a fire. The human team leader, still focused on his work, glanced over at the alien leader and saw the confusion in his eyes. "You think you're the only ones who can survive?" The human leader asked softly, his voice carrying over the howling wind. "You've got technology, but we've got something far stronger. We've got our will to live." The alien leader didn't respond. He only watched as the human team continued to build, as if nothing had changed. He had underestimated them, and he realized now that this challenge wasn't going to be as easy as he thought. The storm raged on. The humans worked through the night, determined to prove that it wasn't their gadgets that made them strong. It was their adaptability, their instincts. And as the aliens huddled inside their high-tech ships, unable to even start a fire, humans smiled quietly to themselves. This part sets up the strong hook, introduces the main conflict, and leaves a sense of suspense as the humans begin to show the aliens that their reliance on technology isn't enough to survive in this new world. The aliens' first mistake. The storm howled around them as the humans continued to work without hesitation. Their shelter, made from natural materials, was starting to take shape. The aliens, on the other hand, were trapped inside their high-tech ships, their advanced gadgets and equipment useless in the face of a simple storm. They had thought they were prepared for everything, but this planet had a way of humbling even the most advanced species. The alien leader stood by the ship's window, watching the humans outside with growing frustration. He couldn't understand it. The humans had no advanced tools, no gadgets that could analyze the storm or predict its path, yet they moved with such confidence. He had never seen anything like it. They were working with what seemed like nothing, but they were thriving. The more he watched, the more he felt the weight of his misjudgment. Why aren't they panicking? One of the alien soldiers asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. He was staring at the humans as they built their shelter with nothing but sticks, rocks, and mud. How are they surviving out there? "They're not surviving," the alien leader replied coldly, though his words lacked the certainty they once had. "They're adapting, something we never had to do." He clenched his fist as the realization hit him. The humans weren't just using their environment, they were mastering it. The human leader looked up at the alien ship just as the rain began to pour harder, soaking the ground beneath their feet. He could see the dim lights of the ship flickering through the storm, and he knew the aliens were inside, struggling to start their fire. A smile tugged at the corners of his lips, but he didn't let it show. He had always known that humans were resilient, but seeing the aliens so helpless brought a sense of pride. His team had been trained for situations like this, and they had an understanding of survival that no amount of technology could replace. One of the human survivalists, a woman named Sarah, came over to the leader, her clothes wet from the rain but her expression determined. "The shelter's almost ready," she said, wiping the water from her face. "We just need to secure the edges and get the fire going." The leader nodded, his eyes still on the alien ship. "Good, keep the fire going. We'll need it tonight." Sarah glanced at the aliens inside their ship and then back at her team. "Do you think they're ready for what's coming?" "They're ready to lose," the leader replied, his voice low but steady. "They think their tech will save them, but they're forgetting one thing. We don't need it." The alien leader watched them with growing frustration. He had never imagined this challenge would test his race so deeply. He had assumed they would easily overcome the humans, showing them their place in the galaxy. But instead, the humans were showing him that there was more to survival than just tools and technology. His race had never been tested in this way. They were the conquerors, the ones who took what they wanted. Yet here they were, outwitted by humans using nothing but basic survival instincts. They're already setting up a fire. One of the alien soldiers said nervously, watching the humans as they gathered more dry wood. The alien leader's eyes narrowed. "Let them try. We'll show them the power of our technology." As the aliens gathered inside their ship, preparing to try again with their high-tech fire-starting devices, the human team went about their work with calm precision. They had no advanced tools, no shortcuts. They relied on what they knew would work. The leader picked up a few sticks and rocks and began rubbing them together. Within moments, a small spark flew out, igniting the dry kindling he had gathered. The fire grew slowly at first, but soon became a steady, warm glow. The humans gathered around the fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering light. They spoke in low tones, making plans for the next few days, working together in harmony. There was no panic, no uncertainty in their movements. They were used to working with nature, not against it. The alien leader watched in disbelief as the humans huddled around their fire, calm and collected. He had never seen anything like it. Their simplicity, their resourcefulness, it was as if they were from a completely different world. His people had always relied on their technology to survive, to control situations. Yet here, on this barren planet, it was the humans who held the power. He turned to his team, frustration bubbling inside him. "We'll try again tomorrow," he said, his voice harsh. "We will not lose to these creatures." But deep inside, the alien leader knew the truth. The humans had already won. They had proved that they didn't need advanced technology to survive. They only needed each other. And that was something the aliens would never understand. As the night wore on, the alien leader sat alone in the quiet ship, staring out at the humans. He could hear their laughter and see the light of their fire flickering in the distance. For the first time in his life, he felt the sting of doubt. Could it be that humans, with their simple tools and ancient knowledge, were more powerful than his entire race? The answer was slowly becoming clear. They were, and it scared him more than anything else in the galaxy. This part continues the suspense, showing the aliens' growing frustration as the humans excel in their survival skills, proving that technology alone isn't enough to thrive. Nature's fury. The night was dark and cold as the storm intensified, howling through the barren landscape. Rain poured relentlessly from the sky, soaking the ground, turning the earth into a slippery, muddy mess. The humans huddled around their fire, the warmth from the flames providing them with the only comfort on the desolate planet. The fire crackled and popped, its light casting shadows on the faces of the team. The storm was strong, but the humans were stronger. They had made their shelter, prepared their food, and now they could rest. The alien team, however, was not so lucky. Inside their ships, the high-tech equipment designed to protect them from the harshest environments failed to perform. The storm had taken them completely by surprise, and now their precious technology couldn't protect them from the elements. The advanced shielding around the ship, once believed to be impenetrable, flickered and sparked in the heavy downpour. Inside, the aliens struggled to keep their equipment functional. But the storm's ferocity only increased with each passing minute. The alien leader sat in the control room of the ship, frustration evident on his face. The storm was doing more than just disrupting their technology. It was challenging everything they believed. He could hear the hum of the ship's systems failing, one by one. The fire-starting devices, once so reliable, had been rendered useless by the storm's intensity. The aliens had their technology, but it wasn't enough. The storm was something they had not accounted for, and now they were at its mercy. As the humans gathered around their fire, the alien leader looked out through the ship's window. The flickering light of their fire illuminated the scene outside, and he could see the humans working in the storm, moving as if they were at home. They weren't struggling. They weren't panicking. They were simply doing what they needed to survive, and it made the alien leader's blood run cold. Sarah, the human survivalist, stood by the fire, her eyes scanning the sky. The rain beat against her face, but she didn't flinch. She had been in worse storms before. The wind howled around them, but she knew how to build shelter in a storm. She knew how to gather what she needed to survive. To the aliens, it must have looked like magic. To Sarah, it was just another challenge, another part of the natural world that needed to be respected and understood. As the hours passed, The storm grew more intense. The winds picked up, howling like a beast on the hunt. The rain turned to sheets of ice, stinging the skin as it hit. Yet, through it all, the humans continued to work, adapting to the changing environment without hesitation. The alien team, on the other hand, was now struggling to stay inside their ship, the walls of metal groaning under the pressure of the storm. Inside their shelter, the humans worked together, reinforcing the walls, securing the fire. They were used to the elements, used to the harsh conditions that life on Earth had thrown at them. They knew how to survive, no matter what. And now, as the storm raged around them, the humans were beginning to see how the aliens had underestimated them. The alien leader, once so confident, was now pacing inside his ship, his mind racing. They had come here to prove their superiority, to show that they were the greatest species in the galaxy. But now, as he watched the humans thrive in the face of nature's fury, he could feel his confidence slipping away. What did it mean to be a conqueror if you couldn't survive the basic challenges of a wild planet? The aliens had technology that could wipe out entire cities, yet they couldn't start a fire or build a shelter in the middle of a storm. It was an uncomfortable thought, one that shook the very foundation of everything he believed in. As the storm continued to howl, the humans made final adjustments to their shelter. Sarah stood by the fire, her eyes scanning the horizon. She could see the alien ships in the distance, their lights flickering in the storm. It was strange, really. The aliens, so sure of their technology, had been brought to their knees by a simple storm, but that wasn't the real danger. The real danger was the environment itself. The storm was just the beginning, and the humans were prepared for what was to come next. With the fire crackling and the shelter secure, the humans sat down to eat. Their meal was simple, just what they had gathered in the short time they had been on the planet. But to them, it was more than enough. It was sustenance. It was life. They didn't need anything fancy. They didn't need advanced tools. They needed each other, and they needed their skills. And as they sat around the fire, the alien leader watched from his ship, unable to tear his eyes away from the humans. The realization was sinking in. They were more than just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. The storm outside was relentless, but the humans were calm. They had seen worse. They had survived worse. And as they sat around their fire, their laughter filling the air, they knew that no matter what the storm threw at them, they would be ready. The aliens, however, had learned a painful lesson. No amount of technology could prepare them for the harsh reality of survival on a death world. And as the storm raged on, the humans proved once again that survival wasn't about tech, it was about willpower, skill, and the ability to adapt. The alien leader, watching from the safety of his ship, realized that this wasn't just a game anymore. The humans weren't just playing to survive, they were playing to win. This part builds the suspense by showing how the storm challenges the aliens' technology while the humans remain calm and adapt to their environment, proving once again that survival is more about skill and will than advanced tools. The hunt begins. The storm had passed, leaving a strange silence in its wake. The winds were still, and the rain had softened to a steady drizzle. The air smelled of wet earth, and the sky was a dull gray. But despite the calm, a sense of tension lingered in the air. The humans knew something that the aliens did not. The real danger had only just begun. They had learned to survive the storm, but the planet had far more to offer, and none of it was friendly. The human leader, still vigilant, stood at the edge of their camp, scanning the horizon. The storm had hidden the planet's true danger. He had heard rumors of strange creatures that lived in the depths of the planet's forests, creatures that were capable of hunting anything that moved. The humans had seen signs of it, tracks in the mud, strange howls in the distance, but it was only now that they could feel it. The alien team had no idea what was coming. They had not trained for this. They were focused on their high-tech equipment, their weapons, and their gadgets. But none of that would matter when the hunt began. We need to set traps, the leader said quietly to Sarah, his eyes never leaving the horizon. Whatever's out there, it's not something we can fight head on. We'll need to outsmart it. Sarah nodded without a word. She understood what had to be done. She had seen similar creatures back on Earth, beasts that could outrun, outmaneuver, and overpower even the most skilled hunters. But what made humans dangerous wasn't their strength. It was their ability to think, to adapt, and to work together. Meanwhile, inside the alien ship, the leader was still trying to regain his composure. The storm had damaged their equipment beyond repair, and now the ship's systems were flickering, struggling to stay operational. The aliens were scrambling to repair what they could, but they were becoming more and more aware of their limitations. They had weapons that could cut through steel, machines that could heal wounds in seconds, but they had no idea how to survive in an environment like this. Are the weapons ready? The alien leader barked at his crew. They're functional, but we haven't had a chance to test them in this environment. One of the soldiers replied nervously, "We don't know how they'll react." The leader scowled. He had expected the humans to be no more than a nuisance, a weak species to be dominated. But now, as the minutes passed, his confidence was being tested. They had already lost the fire-starting challenge. They had already lost the shelter-building test. And now they were about to face a new challenge, the hunt. What do you think the humans are doing right now? One of the alien soldiers asked. They haven't moved since the storm stopped. The leader glanced out the window, his eyes narrowing. The humans were still by their fire, their faces focused on something just beyond their camp. He couldn't see what it was, but he could feel it. They were planning something. They were preparing. They're not waiting, the alien leader muttered to himself. They're hunting. And he was right. The humans knew the planet's dangers. They had faced death before, and they knew how to survive it. They set up their traps, not out of fear, but out of respect for the planet they were on. They weren't trying to dominate it. They were trying to understand it, to coexist with it in a way that allowed them to thrive. The aliens, on the other hand, had never been forced to adapt. They were used to taking, to conquering. But here, on this world, the rules were different. Sarah and the leader worked quickly, setting snares around the perimeter of the camp. They used the materials they had found in the surrounding forest, branches, vines, and rocks. They knew that creatures that lurked in the shadows were fast, and they were dangerous. But the humans knew their tactics. They weren't going to wait for the creature to attack. They were going to lure it in. Hours passed, and the sky grew darker. The humans stayed close to their fire, watching for movement. They knew it was only a matter of time before the creature would come for them. But they didn't panic. They stayed calm, prepared. Inside the alien ship, the soldiers were growing restless. They could feel the tension in the air, a sense that something was about to happen. But they were still focused on their gadgets, still trying to get their equipment working. They had not yet realized what was happening outside. The creature made its move. It came silently, its massive form slipping through the trees like a shadow. It was a hulking mass of muscle and fury, with glowing eyes that pierced the dark. The humans saw it first. It was just a blur at first, then a shape, a figure moving closer to their camp. It was fast, but it wasn't invisible. The humans had been expecting it. They had set their trap, and it was time for the hunt. As the creature approached, Sarah and the leader shared a quick glance. Then, with a single movement, they activated the snare. The creature's foot caught in the trap, and it let out an earth-shattering roar. It thrashed against the ground, trying to break free, but the humans had already prepared. The snare held firm, and the creature was stuck. But the true challenge wasn't in catching the creature. It was in keeping it alive long enough to learn from it. The humans didn't want to kill it. They wanted to understand it. The alien soldiers, however, were already preparing their weapons, itching for the chance to take down something they couldn't even see yet. But the humans didn't need weapons. They needed their wits. The alien leader finally realized what the humans were doing. They weren't just surviving. They were learning, adapting, and thriving. While his team was still focused on their gadgets, the humans had already mastered the art of survival. And now, the hunt had begun. This part ramps up the tension, as the humans set their traps and prepare for the hunt. The aliens, still caught up in their tech, don't realize what's happening until it's too late. The humans are now one step ahead, showing their ability to adapt and survive against a much more powerful threat. Humans, strike back, the creature roared as it struggled against the snare that held it fast. Its massive form writhed in the mud, its claws tearing at the earth, but the trap was strong and it couldn't break free. The humans, calm and steady, moved toward it, their eyes locked on the beast as it fought freedom. They knew the true challenge wasn't just catching it, it was controlling it. The creature was powerful, a beast that could tear apart anything that stood in its way. But it was no match for human ingenuity and preparation. Sarah crouched beside the creature, her hands steady as she worked to calm it. She spoke to it in low, soft tones, her voice a soothing hum that contrasted with the chaos of the beast's struggle. The alien leader, watching from the safety of his ship, could hardly believe what he was seeing. The humans weren't just surviving, they were managing the impossible. They weren't afraid. They weren't panicking. They were taking control of a creature far stronger than any of them. The alien soldiers, meanwhile, stood at the ready, their weapons drawn. They had seen the humans set the trap and watched as the creature was caught, but they still didn't understand what was happening. They assumed the humans were simply lucky, that the creature had walked into their trap by chance. They didn't see the skill and precision that had gone into every move, every decision the humans made. As the creature began to calm under Sarah's hands, the leader turned to his team. "Don't just stand there, we need to act." But as he spoke, the humans were already acting. The human leader, with his calm presence, moved toward the alien ship, his eyes never leaving the creature as he approached. He wasn't worried about the alien weapons. He knew the aliens relied too much on their technology to be effective in a real fight. They couldn't think on their feet the way the humans could. They didn't know how to adapt to the unpredictable. The human leader looked up at the alien ship. The light from the fire reflected off the ship's surface, casting long shadows across the camp. "It's time you learned a lesson," he said quietly to himself, knowing the aliens were watching. He then signaled to his team. With a few swift movements, they made their way to the creature, using ropes and tools to keep it contained. The aliens had their weapons aimed at the humans, but they hesitated. They didn't know what to do. The human leader could see the uncertainty in their eyes. The aliens weren't used to thinking beyond their technology. They were used to using their weapons to solve everything, but they couldn't solve this. The creature, while dangerous, wasn't the real enemy. The real enemy was the alien leader's pride and his inability to adapt. The humans had already outwitted them. As the creature calmed, its massive body no longer thrashing, the human leader made his move. He motioned for the alien leader to approach, a small smirk on his face as he spoke. "You think you can survive here with your tech?" the human leader said, his voice carrying in the quiet of the night. "But you've forgotten something. It's not the tech that makes you strong. It's the will to survive. And that's something you'll never understand." The alien leader's eyes narrowed as he stared down at the human. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans weren't just surviving. They were showing him up, making him question everything he had believed in. He had come to this planet to show the galaxy that his species was the strongest, that they could conquer anything. But the humans were teaching him a brutal lesson. Survival wasn't about dominating others. It was about adapting to the world around you. using everything you had to stay alive. As the creature was securely contained, the humans moved to the next phase of their plan. They didn't want to kill the beast. They wanted to study it, to learn from it. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a chance to prove something far more important, that the human spirit, when tested, would always find a way to thrive. The alien soldiers, still watching, began to shift uncomfortably. They had seen the humans take control of a creature that should have torn them apart. And now, the humans were turning their attention to them. The alien leader, once so confident, now found himself at a loss for what to do. He had always believed that technology was the answer, that it would give him and his people the power to control anything. But the humans had shown him the truth. It wasn't the tech that mattered. It was the drive to survive, to fight, to adapt. The humans had that, and they had it in abundance. As the night wore on, the alien leader realized something that shook him to his core. The humans weren't just playing a game. They were teaching him a lesson that no amount of technology could ever replace. They had already won. Not because they were stronger or more powerful, but because they understood the one thing that the aliens had failed to grasp. True strength didn't come from weapons. It came from the will to endure, to survive, and to never give up. And in that moment, the alien leader knew the war was over. The humans had already won. In this part, the humans strike back with precision and confidence, showing the aliens that it's not their tech that determines survival, but their adaptability and will to endure. The aliens begin to realize that they are outmatched, not by strength, but by the human spirit. The final test, the night stretched on, and the tension in the air thickened. The alien leader, still reeling from the events that had unfolded, paced back and forth inside his ship. His mind raced as he tried to come to terms with the reality of the situation. The humans had already proven themselves time and time again. They had outwitted his team, adapted to the environment, and even tamed a creature that should have been beyond their control. His pride had been shattered, but the worst part was that he couldn't see a way out of the corner of his eye. The alien leader saw the human team gathering near the fire. They weren't celebrating, weren't reveling in their success. They were working together, talking in low voices, and preparing for something. Something the alien leader couldn't quite understand. The humans were preparing, but they weren't preparing for the same things the aliens had trained for. The humans weren't thinking about weapons. They weren't thinking about technology. They were thinking about the next challenge, the one that would truly test them all. The alien leader stepped closer to the window, watching as the humans went about their tasks. The firelight flickered, casting shadows on their faces, and for the first time, the alien leader saw the determination in their eyes. They weren't here to prove something to the aliens. They weren't here to win a competition. They were here to survive, to prove that humanity could thrive no matter the circumstances. They had faced challenges before, and they would face them again. But this challenge, it was different. This one was about more than just survival. This was about respect, about acknowledging something greater than technology. As the alien leader stared out at the humans, he realized that his previous assumptions about them were all wrong. He had believed that they were weak, that they relied on nothing but their primitive instincts. But now, after watching them in action, he saw that their true strength lay not in their weapons or tools, but in their unity, their creativity, and their resilience. These humans had no need for the elaborate systems the aliens had. They had their minds, their bodies, and their spirit. Sarah, standing by the fire, turned to the leader. "It's coming," she said, her voice calm but steady. She knew what was about to happen. They had already prepared for it. The aliens were on the verge of understanding, but it wasn't going to be easy. The next phase would be the hardest. But it was also the most crucial. They were about to face a test that would push them to their absolute limits. The alien soldiers, still unsure of what was to come, stood on edge. Their weapons were at the ready, their senses heightened, but they couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were always one step ahead. No matter how much they tried to outmaneuver them, the humans had the advantage. They had the ability to adapt, to learn, to survive. And that, the alien leader realized, was something his team could never replicate. Then it came. A distant roar echoed through the trees, a sound that sent a chill down everyone's spine. The humans had been expecting it. The creature they had trapped earlier wasn't the only danger in these woods. There were others far worse, and they were coming. It wasn't just a test of strength. It was a test of survival. The humans didn't flinch. They didn't hesitate. They moved quickly, methodically, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. They didn't look to their high-tech gadgets. They didn't need them. They grabbed their tools, sharpened their senses, and prepared for the fight ahead. The alien leader watched in stunned silence. The humans weren't afraid. They were ready. What are they doing? One of the alien soldiers asked, his voice filled with disbelief as he watched the humans work together to build new traps, reinforce their shelter, and prepare weapons from the simple tools they had. They're not even using the tech we gave them. They don't need it, the alien leader replied, his voice low and grim. We thought technology was the answer, but we've learned something tonight. We've learned that the humans don't need our technology to survive. They survive because they are human. The human leader, his face set in determination, looked out at the approaching darkness. He knew what was coming, and he knew what needed to be done. It wasn't about defeating the alien team. It was about surviving the next wave of challenges. The planet was testing them all, and only those who could adapt would make it through. The roar grew louder, closer now, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The alien leader, still behind the safety of his ship, felt the fear creep in. The humans had never backed down. And now, as the creatures drew near, it was clear that the final test was upon them. This would decide everything. The humans had already shown they could survive, but could they defeat what was coming? Could they prove that they were more than just survivors? The alien leader stood in the shadows, watching as the humans braced for impact. The fight was no longer about technology. It was about something far deeper. It was about proving that humanity, with all its flaws and imperfections, could endure anything. And as the first creature broke through the trees, the humans stood ready, their resolve unwavering. For the first time since landing on this planet, the alien leader felt doubt creeping into his mind. Could they really survive? Could his team, with all their advanced technology, keep up with the humans' will to survive? And as the battle began, he realized the answer might already be clear. This part highlights the final moments before the ultimate test. The humans are poised to face the creatures that lurk in the depths, and the alien leader begins to fully understand the true strength of humanity, their spirit, adaptability, and determination to survive. The final lesson, the first creature lunged. From the shadows, its massive form crashing through the underbrush with terrifying speed. The humans were ready. Without hesitation, they moved in perfect harmony, working as one cohesive unit. They didn't need advanced weapons or tech to fight this beast. They had something far more valuable: their instincts, their experience, and their ability to think. On their feet, the alien leader watched in awe as the humans worked together. Sarah was the first to react, throwing a net she had woven from the vines surrounding their camp. The creature roared as it twisted in the air, but the net held strong, and the humans quickly surrounded it, using nothing but basic tools and sheer willpower to subdue it. The alien soldiers stood frozen, unsure of what they were witnessing. These humans weren't just fighting a creature. They were proving something far more important. They were proving that survival wasn't about what you had. It was about what you were capable of becoming when pushed to the brink. As the creature finally calmed under the humans' control, The alien leader felt a knot tighten in his chest. His species, for all its technological prowess, had been brought to its knees by the simplest of creatures. The humans hadn't just survived, they had dominated their environment, adapting to it in ways the aliens had never imagined. They had used the land, the beasts, and the weather to their advantage. The aliens had come to conquer, but instead, they had been forced to witness the undeniable strength of humanity. The alien soldiers, who had once believed their technology was unmatched, now realized how wrong they were. The humans had shown them time and time again that technology was no substitute for the raw power of will, adaptation, and teamwork. The alien leader looked at his soldiers, his eyes filled with doubt. They had failed. Not because they were weak, but because they had underestimated the humans. They had relied too much on their gadgets, their weapons, and their belief that their technology could solve every problem. But now it was clear. The humans had something the aliens would never have, the unyielding drive to survive. Sarah stood tall, her gaze never leaving the creature she had helped capture. The firelight danced in her eyes as she turned to face the alien leader, who was still watching from the distance. "You see," she said quietly, her voice carrying across the camp, "survival isn't about technology. It's about understanding your environment and adapting to it. It's about using everything you have, even if it's just your hands and your mind." The alien leader didn't respond. He couldn't. What could he say? The humans had already proven their point. They had survived, thrived, and conquered in ways that no amount of technology could ever replicate. The very idea that they had done this without the need for advanced weapons, without relying on anything other than their own resourcefulness, had shattered everything the alien leader had ever known about power. He had come here to show the galaxy how great his species was, but in the process, he had learned a harsh truth. It wasn't the technology that made a species strong. It was the will to survive, the strength to endure, and the heart to keep fighting, no matter what the odds were. The humans had turned their simple tools into weapons. They had used their minds, their creativity, and their spirit to survive. They had done what the aliens thought was impossible, proving that there was nothing more dangerous than a species that refused to give up. The alien leader, now fully aware of the human strength, could only watch as they finished securing the creature. He had no words, no arguments left. The humans had shown him that true power wasn't something you could build or program. It was something you had to earn, something that was forged in the fires of struggle, in the heart of adversity. The alien soldiers were silent, each of them processing what had just happened. They had thought their weapons, their ships, and their technology would make them invincible. But now, standing in the presence of the humans, they understood. It wasn't the tech that made them powerful. It was their heart. It was their ability to adapt and survive when everything around them told them to fail. The alien soldiers had seen it firsthand, and they knew the truth. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The human leader approached the alien leader slowly, his face calm but resolute. "You came here to test us," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight that made the alien leader flinch. "But you've learned that we don't need your tests. We are the test. And we've passed." The alien leader's gaze fell to the ground, his pride shattered, and for the first time since they had landed, he felt something he had never felt before: humility. The humans had shown him that there was no such thing as an unbeatable foe. There were only those who refused to give up, no matter the odds. As the alien leader turned to leave, he knew that he would never forget this day. He had come to conquer, to prove his species' superiority. But instead, he had learned the greatest lesson of all. The true strength of any species wasn't in its technology or its weapons. It was in its spirit, its will to survive, and its ability to adapt to the world around it. And in that moment, the alien leader knew the humans had won, not by force, not by might, but by being human. In this final part, The aliens are forced to confront the truth of humanity's strength and resilience. The humans prove that their true power lies in their spirit, adaptability, and will to survive, leaving the alien leader and his soldiers humbled and defeated. The story concludes with a lesson learned and a victory won not through technology, but through the heart of humanity itself.